Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today is the 14th of May, 2021. Right, everyone, let's get into it. So, I've had a few questions actually over the last few days since I did the refuel. I think it was a couple of days ago, where I was talking about a possible kind of fork that would happen, a miner-led fork that would happen during the merge, so the ETH1 to ETH2 merge. And people were asking me, what would this mean? Does this mean I'd get fork tokens, or all these kinds of questions? So, I figured it'd probably be prudent to go through exactly what this would mean, how it would affect you, what would happen, what exchanges would likely do and things like that. So I'm going to do that. Just before I jump into that, I will point out that there's this great blog post that was published all the way back in April of 2018 by Alex van der Sand, an early Ethereum developer, called Avoid Evil Twins. Every Ethereum app pays the price of a chain split. Now, this is essentially what I'm going to be talking about is Ethereum's app layer, and this is what this piece goes into, in that forks on Ethereum are much different to forks in like Bitcoin. And I'm talking like forks where the chain actually splits in two and you have two independent chains, not forks like when, we had the Berlin hard fork to upgrade and the previous chain dies off. I'm talking about two chains, work independent of each other and producing blocks. So let's talk about that. So I'll first use the example of Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash and what happened in 2017 or late 2017 there. So essentially, there was a disagreement over the block size. Bitcoin Cash, people wanted the block size to be larger than 1 megabyte. Bitcoiners were like, no, we're not going to raise the block size like that. We're going to introduce SegWit, which, is like effectively a block size raise. A small one, but that was the main disagreement over that. So what ended up happening was that the Bitcoin Cash chain forked off of Bitcoin on August 1st, 2017, and everyone who held BTC at that time also was credited BCH. So essentially, you got a new asset with a $0 cost basis, if you're thinking about tax implications here, on this new chain, and Bitcoin Cash started producing blocks and processing transactions independently of the Bitcoin chain. Nice, clean split, right? All good stuff. I mean, it wasn't clean in the fact that there was hash wars that went on because they both shared the same mining algorithm, and there was also a lot of price volatility at the time as well. So clean as in like once it was done, and everyone got their coins and everything like that. But in Ethereum, this is very different because Ethereum isn't just like the ETH asset, right? Ethereum is not just home to one asset and that's it. Ethereum is home to lots and lots of different apps, lots of different smart contracts, lots of different things that are all interacting with each other that do different things. So an Ethereum split would actually, like a controversial split would actually be really bad. The only one that Ethereum has had in the past has been the Ethereum to Ethereum Classic split, but that happened, in 2016 when there were barely any apps on Ethereum. It was all very quiet. There wasn't many people using the network, so it was fine then. But today, it is not fine. Today, it would be very, very, very bad, and I'll go through the reasons why. So the reason why it would be bad is because it becomes very hard to coordinate how you would basically react to this as an app developer. Now, which chain do you pick? Well, obviously you're going to pick the chain that the rest of the people pick. So the community, the exchanges, the infrastructure providers, all that sort of stuff. Whatever chain they go with is going to be the canonical chain, the chain that everyone refers to as Ethereum, right? But if there is a split, like as I was saying, if there is a miner-led fork where they're like, okay, well, you're getting rid of us and you're firing us essentially because you're moving from proof of work to proof of stake, well, we're just going to fork and basically continue the proof of work chain, as it was. Now, the problem with that is that once the merge happens, everyone's going to go over to the ETH1 chain that is being validated by the proof of stake chain, right? All the app devs, all the infrastructure, all the exchanges, that's going to be the official chain. There's no doubt about that. So what happens to the apps on the forked chain? What happens to MakerDAO and Compound and Aave? What happens to all the assets in there? If USDC, if Circle and Coinbase, the issuers of USDC, say, well, the official USDC is on the ETH2 Ethereum, then what happens to the USDC on the miner-led fork? It becomes worthless because you cannot exchange it for USD through exchanges or whatever like that. And that doesn't just go for USDC. It's all of these centralized assets: WBTC, Tether, TUSD, like there's lots of these things out there now. And that's just the surface, right? Think about the apps. What would MakerDAO do? Like the MakerDAO wouldn't be backed by ETH anymore. It would be backed by this forked ETH. Now the forked ETH value would probably be much less than the ETH's value. So the outstanding DAI supply on that new fork of Ethereum would actually be greater than probably greater than the collateral. So the DAI price would probably fall. And then, what if the MKR token holders voted to emergency shut down MakerDAO, which means like just cancel out all the debt and everything? That would mean there wouldn't be a MakerDAO there anymore, and it would be very messy, right? Just as an example here. And all of the liquidity pools like on Uniswap or SushiSwap or whatever that had these assets like USDC and USDT paired against other assets, they would all go to zero because you cannot redeem USDC for actual USD anymore. So why would anyone be trading that essentially? These are just some surface level things here. So those are the considerations to make here. And that's why a split like this for Ethereum is much, much more complicated and potentially much worse than it is for something like Bitcoin. Now, the second thing here is when people ask, okay, well, if it forks, would I get some forked ETH on this new chain? I'm like, yes, technically you would, but it depends where your ETH is. If your ETH is sitting in a pool, right, say you're liquidity providing for ETH USDC, well, in that case, there's going to be like extreme volatility on that pair because USDC essentially goes to zero. So what ends up happening is that you may not be able to get out exactly what you should. Like if you have 100 ETH and you're expecting 100 forked ETH, well, maybe you don't get out that much because someone's come along and arbed all that away, and maybe you get much less than that. That's just one example. Another example would be if your ETH is being used as collateral to back up something, right? What if you've used your ETH as collateral to back up a USDC loan that you've taken from Compound, for example, and the USDC that you now have on the fork chain is worthless? You can't pay that loan back and you can't get your ETH back. So you wouldn't have forked ETH then. The only way you would have forked ETH, really, at least I think for most people, would be just to have it in your wallet. You have to have it in your wallet, essentially. You have to have it not in a DeFi app, under your own custody, and just sitting there. Now, does this mean that leading up to this fork, and I did say the other day I was speculating, but I was saying that I think there's like 100% chance that there would be this miner-led fork because it makes no sense for them not to do this. Just from a pure profit maximalist perspective, it doesn't make sense for miners not to do this. I'm not saying that I have any special knowledge here. I don't know if miners are going to do this. Miners are generally not very coordinated. But all it takes is one mining pool to say, well, we're going to continue the Ethereum chain as like this forked version and whatever. And then like basically everyone on the normal Ethereum chain is going to be fine, right? There's nothing to worry about there. But the fork chain just I don't see how it even like works or survives because it would just go to shit. Like everything on it would just break down. It would just implode essentially. So from that perspective, I just don't see that kind of like playing out very nicely at all. And maybe it settles down eventually and the forked ETH gets some kind of value and miners just continue mining it like they do with Ethereum Classic, depending on what exchange is listed and stuff like that. So maybe that happens too. But I think, as the post says here, this is highly illogical for miners to do for anything other than profit maximalist reasons. And at the end of the day, everyone's going to know that this chain is just like a profit maxi chain. You dump your forked ETH and you get some more ETH, and that's it, right? No one that I know would accept this chain as anything more than something to get some more ETH from. So I hope that gives a bit more color around what would happen. I just went high level. I didn't dive deeper. I mean, I could dive deeper if I wanted to, but there's so many variables you could consider. Like, what if the miners fork off and then say, oh, well, we don't care about the gas limit anymore, so we're going to raise the gas limit higher, and we're going to attract people to our chain because now it's got more throughput than the normal Ethereum chain has, and we've got more scalability, and then the fees will be less because there'll be less activity and all this sort of stuff. Maybe they lower the block times. They can do anything they want, essentially, with it. But in saying that, the cleanest way to fork would just be to just continue the chain from the moment that it was basically forked over, or at least merged over into ETH2. But again, as I said, this is not a clean fork. This would be very messy. It would be very messy for exchanges. Exchanges aren't going to accept USDC from this forked chain. They're not going to accept ETH from this forked chain as ETH. If they list it, they'll accept like the forked ETH, right? So from that point of view, I just don't see how it survives. So there's a high level for you. In terms of like how exchanges will treat a fork and stuff like that, I mean, if it actually survives, they'll probably credit you the forked ETH, right? if you had ETH stored in exchanges, that'd be pretty straightforward. But I don't know. I don't know how exchanges will treat this, because supporting a chain that is like incredibly unstable and incredibly volatile, and literally basically, by going there, you're going into like you're walking into fire essentially. So an exchange supporting this would be quite weird. But I can see some of the smaller ones doing it just for some profit maximalism purposes, which, I mean, whatever, that's fine. But in terms of like the ecosystem, no. And I'm not even talking about the ecosystem infrastructure providers. Like, imagine what happens to all the dApps once the Graph and Infura and and other infrastructure providers stop providing support for that chain, right? Because they're not going to support it, because they don't even know. Because why would they? Like, it's just overhead for them to support some kind of dead chain that is essentially dead on arrival. So even that would be even worse. I mean, you wouldn't even be able to use half the apps on the front end. You'd be able to use the smart contracts, but then you'd manually have to go in and do it. And there wouldn't be an Etherscan for it either, like, unless the miners somehow get Etherscan to build them something. So, or they'd have to build some kind of block explorer. So from that perspective, it would just be so pointless, really. At the end of the day, it would be pointless. It would be very short-lived, I think. I think it would lose a lot of attention very quickly. And, the forked ETH that you get may not even be worth very much. So at the end of the day, as much as I believe that it's going to happen, just because, it doesn't make sense for it not to, I don't think it's going to be something that's going to be around for very long. I think it's going to be essentially, for lack of a better term, a pump and dump from miners at the end of the day. So anyway, I hope that provides more clarity there. I'm going to move on to some of the updates from the last 24 hours. So Trent Van Epps from the Ethereum Foundation announced today that there's a new Core Dev Apprenticeship program, which is basically a pilot project to get more people engaged with Ethereum protocol work. It's being headed up by Piper Miriam here, who's been an Ethereum core developer for a very long time, or at least been part of that sphere for a very long time. The deadline to apply is May 31st, and this apprenticeship program will run from mid-June to mid-September. This is awesome. I mean, we need more core protocol devs. It is not an easy job at the end of the day. It is a hard job. It requires lots of specialized knowledge, because the protocol level is the base of everything. It is where everything gets built on. It needs to move incredibly, not slowly, but it needs to move incredibly carefully, so that we keep the base chain secure and we minimize the amount of bugs that can happen. And also, it's not just like the protocol work; it's also the client work as well. Improving clients and all that good stuff there. So if this is you, if you are interested, I mean, I know this probably doesn't apply to most of you. It definitely doesn't apply to me. But if you are someone who likes doing low-level protocol work or low-level programming or any of that sort of stuff, or just wants to get involved, definitely go check this out. You can apply here. The link will be in the YouTube description below. Definitely go check it out. I couldn't think of anything more exciting to be a part of if you were someone who had the skill set to do this. So definitely go have a look at this. So Justin Drake put out a parody tweet today, and he was parodying Elon Musk, who said, Elon Musk's original tweet said, "Working with Doge devs to improve system transaction efficiency, potentially promising." Now, I'm not going to comment too much about the Doge kind of tweet here and Elon's, affinity for Doge, which I don't really understand, but it is what it is. But Justin Drake basically parodied it by saying, "Working with Ethereum devs to improve system transaction efficiency, potentially promising." And then he followed it up with a tweet that says, that Ethereum is going to have 10,000 times the power efficiency from 10 gigawatt power to 1 megawatt POS, so proof of work versus proof of stake, and then 10,000 times scalability, 100 times with sharding and 100 times with rollups. Now, this is the actual true improvements to transaction efficiency and kind of like energy consumption as well. Dogecoin is essentially a dead project. It has no devs. It can of course be revived. And if Elon Musk really wanted to, he could hire developers to work on it. But, core developers are in very short supply. As you can see, there's an apprenticeship program that I just talked about. They are not easy to come by. Good protocol devs for handling a network that handles, billions of dollars of value, which Dogecoin now does, even harder to come by. And getting people to stick around is even harder. So I don't know what Elon's going to do there. I don't know what system improvements he's going to bring to Dogecoin. I don't know. People are saying, they're going to add smart contracts to Dogecoin and all this sort of stuff. I'm like, I mean, technically you can, but is Dogecoin just going to be another smart contract blockchain? Like, who wants smart contracts on Dogecoin? Like, the network itself isn't even used for anything other than arbitraging between exchanges, and sometimes people tip each other. Like, really, it's hardly used as like a transactional network. But anyway, onto what Justin Drake said here, I think people really underestimate the energy gains we get from proof of stake versus proof of work. Now, as I said on the other day's refuel, I'm not going to go into whether I think proof of work energy is good or bad. I'm not here to moralize. I'm not here to impart my opinions on you on that. But what I am here to do is compare the energy use, right? So proof of work obviously uses a lot of energy, and I mean a lot of energy, right? And that's by design. That is not a flaw. That is a feature, as they say. It is a feature, not a bug. Whereas Ethereum proof of stake, one of its main features is that it uses considerably less energy. And this is because it does not require specialized hardware. You can run a validator on a Raspberry Pi at the end of the day. So, and that's a low power usage kind of piece of hardware. But generally, you want to run it on some kind of like, I guess like, if you want like some kind of a desktop PC, like I've got here, my staking box, right? And that uses much less power than proof of work does. I think you could say 99.9% less, because think about it. For proof of work, you need to pay to keep these mining rigs on 24/7, and they suck power like no tomorrow. Like they're efficient for what they do in terms of like the efficiency per kind of like kilowatt you get for mining Bitcoin is very good. But you know, a lot of these big mining shops run like massive warehouses full of them, and you know they use a lot of electricity, right? But also, it's the waste that it produces too. Like a lot of these miners have to get replaced. Like they either break or newer versions come out, and all of that waste just goes into landfill. So that again is another impact on the environment and stuff like that. And then on top of that, the footprint of like these warehouses being in the physical environment, and people needing to maintain this, it is a massive industry. So it uses a lot of energy at the end of the day. Whereas proof of stake, technically, if everyone wanted to, they could just stake from their own home. And as I said, the hardware required is very minimal here. So it uses much less energy. It doesn't require massive data warehouses. I could run on my little kind of like little staking box here. I could run hundreds of validators if I wanted to on there because it's got the power to do so. And as I said, it's just like a desktop PC. To run hundreds of miners, you would need you could probably do it from home, but it would require like a massive amount of room in your house, and you'd be drawing a massive amount of power, and you may not even be able to do it because the power company would say, well, you're in a residential area, you're drawing way too much power for that, and you need to go to a commercial area to do this. So you would probably be forced to rent out a warehouse anyway. And on top of that, one underappreciated aspect of proof of stake from a security aspect, and this falls into its energy use, is that it's a lot harder to track where validators are, because of the fact that with proof of work, you can actually find where the miners are just by their energy footprint, right? Energy companies could easily find out who's mining, because I think mining uses more energy, in terms of like, not globally, not in aggregate, but if you were to look at the grid, say, and you're in a city and you say, okay, what's using the most energy here? Well, the things that use the most energy are things like data centers, and kind of like I guess like other kind of like power hungry things like that are on 24/7. But like something that would potentially use more energy than that would be a proof of work farm, essentially. So it's very easy to find that. So it would be very easy for governments to find it and shut it down. Whereas with proof of stake, it's much harder to find where these things are, because people can have them on their home PCs and there's no detectable energy signature here. It would just look like you're running just a normal kind of like electricity in a household. And even if your electricity is above normal because your computer's on all the time, well, let's be honest, most people's computers are on a lot, like maybe not all the time, maybe not 24/7, but people have like multiple electronic devices that suck all this power, whether it be a PC, a laptop, charging their phones, all the smart home stuff they have, the TV, all this sort of stuff, and I mean, just all of that. Like, I think the difference would be marginal, so you wouldn't be able to track a proof of stake validator like that at all. Okay, so that's enough on the energy stuff. Now the scalability things. This is another underappreciated aspect here, is that everyone's talking about rollups and how they give us lots of scalability, and that's fine. Like Ethereum is rollups, a rollup centric future where we get to basically go on layer 2 with rollups and other solutions, like the Polygon and things like that as well, for sure, which give us this 100 times scalability boost or throughput boost here. But on top of that, you can multiply this 100 times by sharding, because sharding essentially gives us 64 new blockchains to work with. And as I've explained before, they act as data layers for rollups and for other scalability solutions to tap into, which means you multiply 100 by 100, And you get 10,000 times scalability here, which is an absolutely massive improvement. 10,000 times the current 15 transactions per second on average that Ethereum does is 150,000 transactions per second. And that's just in the first iterations of this technology. So yeah, massive gains across both like the energy use in terms of like reducing it and scalability here. So this is really awesome. And I just got done listening to Justin Drake's latest podcast on Bankless as well, which doesn't necessarily talk about this stuff, but he does go through, I guess like as an aside in some of the points that he talks about this sort of stuff. The episode's mostly focused on like EIP 1559 and proof of stake and what it means for ETH as an asset. But definitely go listen to that anyway, because it does have a bit to do with this as well. So there is a Buenos Aires DAO here, or BairesDAO. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. Some Argentinian is going to call me out on that. But anyway, this was introduced today, which is basically a group of individuals from Argentina that have banded together to create I guess like a syndicate of investors here. So they've got a tweet thread here announcing what they are, what they do, who's involved. So I'll link this in the YouTube description for you to go check out. But there are a lot of people here. I mean, some of you may recognize them, some of you may not. There's my good friend Patricio Witholta here from POAP. You'll definitely know what POAP is. Definitely a few other people around here like Sebastian from DeFi Pulse here, another good friend of mine. I'm just scrolling through the list here of names that I kind of recognize. Maybe I don't recognize them because of the handles and things like that, but there are a lot of people from a lot of the top projects in the space. You can see the projects here like Balancer, Graph, Open Zeppelin, Ethereum Buenos Aires, which is a meetup and stuff like that. POAP as well, Cello, and Mariano Conti from MakerDAO, which I'm sure most of you know who he is as well. He's very famous within the Ethereum community, and especially within the Argentinian community here. But this is really cool to see. I really do think DAOs are like the future of human coordination. Even though they haven't been big lately, I think in general, we've seen this kind of play out more and more. We've seen things like the Flamingo DAO come about, which is another investment DAO. The Lao, which is like a legal DAO. We have Pleaser DAO, which was banded together to buy, I guess, like People Pleaser's artwork from Uniswap. And then I think they bought something else as well. And now we have BairesDAO here, which is obviously, they're calling themselves an influencer syndicate from the bottom of the map, so from Argentina. I think Australia is lower on the map than Argentina. I might have to check that. But at the bottom, I mean, technically the bottom of the map is, oh man, I don't know my geography very well. But anyway, Iceland? No, it's probably not Iceland. I don't know. I'm not even going to try and guess. But anyway, obviously this is a investment syndicate. So if you're interested in getting these people on board, people who are very actively involved with this technology for, very real reasons, right? As we all know, the Argentinian peso is currently undergoing and has been undergoing for quite a while hyperinflation. So they are very involved in crypto because of this, and especially very involved in Ethereum. So if you want their support, if you want them on board and want the geniuses, a lot of these people are working for some of the top projects here. If you want them on board, definitely reach out to them. I'm sure they'd be very interested in funding your project and being a part of it and helping out with it as well. So speaking of funding, HandleFi or Handle Finance, a forex protocol that's kind of building on Ethereum here, has closed a strategic round. So they did their seed round a few weeks ago, and now they've closed a strategic round, bringing on board a bunch of new investors here. So you might recognize some of the names: OKX Ventures. I think there's a few others here that you may recognize, like QCP Capital, LD Capital here. There's so many investors here that are on board, and their previous investors included other investors like CMS Holdings and Apollo Capital from Australia. The Lao, as I just mentioned before, the Lao is another kind of DAO that's going on in terms of investment DAOs here. But yeah, congrats to them on the raise. I'm really looking forward to this project going live. For those of you who don't know, just some background here, this project is aiming to do non-USD stablecoin, so things like AUD and JPY and JPY, sorry, the AUD and other forex here. So I'm really excited about that because, as I've mentioned before on the refuel, I can't really stay in USD for too long. It fluctuates too much against the Australian dollar. It gives me tax burdens and tax headaches, and I just really don't like sitting in it. So being able to sit in AUD and possibly do yield farming with it would be very nice, because I have to pay my taxes and I have to pay my real life expenses in AUD, so I have to hold AUD. So I would love to have an AUD stablecoin where I can do all this sort of stuff. So yeah, congrats to them on raising this strategic round. I think they're pretty close to mainnet here from what I've seen. So yeah, looking forward to this going live. So speaking of things going live, 1inch is now live on Polygon. So just another project to be expanding to the Polygon network here. Obviously a scalability solution for Ethereum. We all know and love Polygon, but I think, more and more projects are now bridging over there, and they're getting themselves a very nice ecosystem of projects because they have they have like Aave on there now. They have Curve and MStable and 1inch and SushiSwap. I mean, there's so many on there now. And once you have these core projects on there, other projects want to come because there's liquidity there now, right? And there's like users. I mean, the usage has been exploding. Speaking of usage, John Lilich, a fellow advisor to Polygon with me, basically put out this great summary thread here where he said, over the past 90 days, Polygon growth has absolutely exploded. Aave went from 10 million to 4 billion. Number of daily transactions went from 100K to 3 million. So that's a huge jump there. The TVL on the platform went from 100 million to 5 billion. ETH locked went from just 1.2K to 362K here. And exchange supply of Matic tokens went down a lot as well if you're a Matic holder, which is really, really cool to see. I mean, as I said, I'm a Polygon advisor here, obviously compensated for my work, so just a disclosure there. But I mean, I've spoken about Polygon a lot before, and I've spoken about why I love supporting them and how Ethereum aligned they are as a scalability solution here. Yeah, they're not, I mean, the Polygon POS chain is not a roll-up or anything like that. It is a commit chain, and I've spoken about the benefits of that before, and I've spoken about the benefits of having Polygon on board as a politically and socially scalable Ethereum scalability solution here. So really, really great to see the growth here, and as I said, really great to see more projects adopting it. So kudos to I guess, the Polygon team for their amazing work here. I mean, as an advisor, I get to see in the background what they're doing, or at least a glimpse of it, what they're doing. They just work so hard, honestly, and they are so dedicated to their mission. And what their mission is basically scaling Ethereum. And I mean, every team that I talk to has basically spoken to Polygon, which I can't say for every other team. Because Polygon actually understands, or the Polygon team deeply understand the value of business development and marketing, and making sure that you basically get yourselves across like every project in the ecosystem. And that's why so many projects are deploying there. So yeah, I guess kudos to the team for grinding there. I'm very happy to be on board and helping them with this and just helping to get the word out. So speaking of scalability projects, I guess, Loopring have put out an announcement here that they're calling all YouTube content creators. They put out a Loopring Creator Grants program where you can get paid for educating people and growing the Loopring ecosystem. So essentially, if this is something you're interested in and something you're interested in creating, definitely go check out this post, which will be linked to the YouTube description, of course. And you can earn, I'm going to assume it's LRC tokens. I didn't actually check here, but there's basically, yeah, I'm assuming it's going to be dominated in LRC tokens here, but $5,000 in grants up for grabs, with $2,500 going to first place, $1,250 to second place, and $500 to third place. So if that's you, definitely go check this Loopring Creator Grants program out. So Alpha Finance has relaunched their V2 on, their Alpha Homora V2 on the Ethereum mainnet. And now going live with a bunch of different integrations, including Cream, Uniswap, SushiSwap, Curve, and Balancer. The first set of leveraged yield farms on Alpha Homora V2 include all of these pairs here. I won't read them all out, but obviously the popular pairs that everyone likes to yield farm with, like the stablecoin pairs, ETH Wi-Fi, ETH Uni, ETH Sushi, and stuff like that as well. There's also a competition running as well here, I think. So there's a competition to guess the launch time. So for the first 5 winners who guess this launch time, will get reached out to via Twitter. Via Twitter here. I don't know what the prize is. I don't think there's any prize here, but it's probably something good. Maybe some juicy alpha tokens there. And then the thread goes into exactly what's happening and what Alpha Homora V2 is. So if you haven't checked this out yet, definitely get into it here. They're one of the biggest DeFi protocols and have been growing rapidly over the past a few months here. Definitely one of my favorites in the Ethereum ecosystem, and I'm really great to see them go live with this Alpha Homora V2 here. So Stani's just leaking more alpha again on Twitter, as he does. He's basically put out a tweet today saying, I am looking for product managers to be part of building 3 new protocols for their Aave ecosystem. What can he mean by this? 3 new protocols for their Aave ecosystem. That's huge, because a protocol is bigger than just like an app feature or just like some new integration or whatever. And I'm wondering if this means that he's going to deploy Aave to 3 new networks or layer 2s, or actually creating 3 new protocols as part of their Aave family. I don't know. Maybe you'll know if you're a product manager. Definitely, if that is something that you're interested in being, or you're a product manager for a non-crypto company and you want to join crypto, go reach out to Stani here. I'm pretty sure his DMs are open, and then you can go basically potentially work for Aave, which is one of the best DeFi teams, obviously. So yeah, definitely go check that out. That's interesting to you. All right, everyone, that's it for today's episode. Thank you again for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel. Actually, join the Discord channel because tomorrow at 11 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, I'm not going to do the time conversions, you can just look that up. I'm going to be doing an AMA, 1 to 2 hours, where everyone can ask me anything they want about Ethereum. We're going to keep it conversational like. It's not just going to be me talking. Everyone else can chime in. And if you can't make it, it's going to be recorded and uploaded to YouTube, so don't worry about that. But definitely check it out and come and join if you are interested in being part of the AMA. But on that note, I'll catch you all for next week's refuel. Thanks, everyone.